See you later. I just want to get
Bye.
going. Right, we're going live. Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, wait, it's not gone live yet. Setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. It's about to go live. Yay. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. It is now 12:01. It is Thursday, the 27th of August. And what an incredible month this has been. Every afternoon at 12 o'clock, I'm online and I am interviewing one of the remarkable women who supported me in the creation and the publishing of The Forgotten Woman, the South African story. For some, you've heard the story over and over again. For others who may be tuning in and haven't heard it before, the story behind the woman. It's all about how can we support women? How can we as a collective support women? And during the pandemic and the crisis and the lockdown, many women have been affected. So as an organization, Women of Stature decided to make some form of contribution to help women who are finding themselves in a distressed situation as a result of lockdown, as a result of loss of income, possibly even business closure. So the Women of Stature Foundation, which is our nonprofit company, that is where the funds, the sale of the book, the funds are going towards the Forgotten Woman of COVID-19. We certainly are so appreciative to everyone who have already bought the book. It's currently available on Amazon Kindle as an ebook, makes for ease of reading. You have it on your phone. I mean, it's just so convenient. I've got it on my phone, and at any time when I'm sitting waiting to see the doctor, or hopefully not see the doctor, especially with the pandemic, but just generally speaking, it's available. But we're very proud to say that we are busy with the planning to do the official launch of the paperback, which will be in time for Christmas. So make sure that you look out for it. We will be obviously promoting the book very soon. We will be taking pre-orders for the book. It'll be available on the Women of Stature website where you can place your pre-order. We will happily courier it to you wherever you are. Obviously, the cost of the book will be not exclusive of the courier costs, but as soon as we receive your order, we'll be in contact with you, and then we obviously discuss the delivery. So we're very excited to have with us today one of the editors. So Nicole Engelbrecht was actually recommended to me, and I contacted her a few months ago, and I'd asked her whether or not she would be interested in coming on board and being part of this project with me. And she accepted with open arms. And that is a spirit in which I appreciate the collaborative effort of all the women that came on board with me. So Nicole, I'm so pleased to have you with me today, to interview you today, to give you an opportunity to tell everybody who you are, what you do. I know that you're a freelance writer. I know that you're a podcaster. You helped me to edit the book. You helped me to bring the book to fruition, and I so appreciate that of you. But you are more than just that. I mean, you're an ex-Johannesburger, but you're living in the beautiful mother city of Cape Town in Bloubergstrand. What more can you want? So Nicole, tell us a bit more about yourself. Where did you grow up? And what is it that inspired you to do what you do today?
Well, firstly, thank you very, very much for having me on today. I really do appreciate it, Charlotte. I also thank you for involving me in the project. It was an amazing experience. Reading the stories, I left a review on Amazon saying that you cannot help but be inspired by the stories of these women, and being a part of that and a part of bringing it to fruition was really an amazing experience. So I thank you for taking on the challenge and for allowing me to be part of that. So I grew up in Boksburg on the East Rand. I've got two siblings, both older than me, quite a bit older than me. So I was sort of, we call it the only child because they were out of the house already by the time I was growing up. A child to a single mother. And yeah, it's my childhood was, I guess I was a nerd. If you want to call it that, or rather I was a studious child, did very well academically, but never really explored my, other skills. But one thing I can remember is from the age of probably my first awareness, so probably about 6 years old, I always loved writing and telling stories. And that was something that was in me from a child. And as I grew up, I wanted to be a journalist. That was my, well, among other things, I think it was a vet and then it was a lawyer. But I wanted to pursue the writing as a career, but as it does, life took me in a different direction. And I ended up working in corporate, several different positions, but always, kept the writing as my hobby. And to be honest with you, I never really thought that it ever could be something I could do as a job. It was always going to be a hobby in my mind. Although I describe writing for me as, if I'm not writing, the world is like a black and white photograph. And as soon as I start writing, the world has color. So that's what writing and telling stories in general means to me as a person. My first, I would say, probably proper job, I'm a lifer. So when I started a company, I stayed there for a decent period of time. It was 12 years. That was my first job. And throughout the roles in my career, I've never just stuck to what I was hired to do. So I was a receptionist, and then I asked, could I help with sales? Can I help with human resources? Can I help with marketing? And I've really done that in all the roles throughout my career. So what that's done is it's given me, although I haven't studied all of these different fields, it's given me a very wide knowledge base in many different fields. And I think that was helpful to me in my corporate career. Yes, and then just over a year ago, I was working as a sales manager. I had been very successful, more successful than I ever thought I would be. I had a future ahead of me in corporate. And I just got to that point in my life where something didn't feel right. I sat there one day, and I don't know if it was an early midlife crisis or what it was, but, I thought to myself, what am I actually achieving here? Throughout my career, one of the things that really made me enjoy going to work was being able to help and influence others and inspire others. So the management role in helping the people that were in my employ, that was fantastic. I loved it, that. But I sat there and I thought, I'm chasing numbers, and what do these numbers actually mean? It's not leaving a legacy, it's not changing anything. And one thing led to another, and eventually I ended up resigning from my corporate career. I thought, with a year to go until I was 40, which is just in a couple of days now.
Wow.
But this was a year ago. I thought, if I don't try it now, I will never know. And, that creative thing within me, I knew that I had to do that. So I took the jump, dove right in, and it was terrifying. But I'm now, as you mentioned, assisting people with editing their books, freelance writing, and what I'm most proud of at the moment is my podcast that I've started as well. So that's me in a nutshell.
Well, you're one of those courageous women who didn't allow the fear of the unknown to stop her from stepping out of her comfort zone, because we can so easily get into the rut of a comfort zone, as you say, and not really pursue our true passion. So kudos to you for doing that, because it also then tells and sends a message out to other people, women, men alike, doesn't matter who they are, that your passion is what drives your purpose. And your purpose in life now is obviously, as you say, to write the stories of others, to tell the stories of others. Now, something else that you do, and I just absolutely love, I love mystery stories, and I also read murder fiction, of course, but I see that you're doing the real life true crime story reviewing and so on. Tell us a bit about that, because that sounds very interesting.
Yeah, so I started South Africa's first victim-focused true crime podcast, and that, it sort of brought together all of my interests. I love researching, I love writing and telling stories, and true crime has always been something that I've always been interested in. And it's a genre that's not for everyone. But I approached this project and starting this project from the perspective of looking at what was happening in the United States and the United Kingdom with podcasts and true crime podcasts specifically. And these podcasts were not just serving to entertain people. They were serving to bring awareness to these cases. And there've been probably 3 or 4 cases that I can think of offhand in the United States and the UK that have actually been solved as a result of a podcast covering the case, putting the information out there, and tips coming in from that podcast. So that was a big thing for me when I decided to start this podcast. In South Africa, we know we have a huge crime rate. We have a huge murder rate and violent crime rates. And we, as so many other countries, we sort of have this divide where there are cases that are covered by the mainstream media hugely, and it's all over the place. The Oscar trial and the From Badar trial and all those cases that the public know about and the mainstream media cover all the time because those headlines bring readers or viewers. But then we have this other, and it's the majority of our victims that I like to call the invisible victims in our country. And those are the people who don't get the headlines. And those are the people, you know, the children, the Amahle Tebete, who was 9 years old and kidnapped from Tsakani over a year ago. And there was no headlines for her. The first article about her disappearance in the newspaper, in News 24 or any online media, was 3 months after she disappeared.
Sure.
You know, and that was a big thing for me. So when I cover these cases on the podcast, I try and stick to cases where I know I can bring awareness. I do cover solved cases. So when I say I cover them, I research the cases and I present in a story format focused on the victim in sort of an hour-long episode. I present the details of that victim's life and the crime and, you know, what happened to them. So I try and focus on those unsolved cases, and then I do bring some solved in as well, because people like to hear about the solved cases. But it has become a fantastic platform to get these unsolved, invisible victim cases under the eyes of really a huge amount of people, because I'm very grateful to say that this podcast has exploded in popularity.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so I must say that Arena Holdings, who is ex-TISA Black Star, they very early on in this podcast sort of saw that there was a lot of potential, and they've been helping me to distribute the podcast. So it's reached a huge amount of people, and an amazing community has formed around the podcast. So people are now more aware of these cases that they wouldn't have even heard of, you know, and they're sharing information, and they're starting. A big thing for me is to restart conversations about these crimes. You know, the lady that went missing 25 years ago, believe it or not, that case can still be solved. Her family still can get closure. It just, people need to start talking again. You know, and the minute people start talking about these cases, the right conscience might be triggered. And it has happened, and I believe that it will continue to happen. So that was really, you know, my inspiration behind starting the podcast. There's an enjoyment and an entertainment factor to it, because there's a huge number of people who enjoy the true crime genre, but it also has, you know, a really important role to play, I believe, and many others believe as well, in helping to solve crime in South Africa going forward. So yeah, that's, and the podcast is called True Crime South Africa.
And when you say True Crime South Africa, we can just go on and Google it, and we'll pick up on it if they want. Yeah. People want to register for your. Do you register to get access to these podcasts, or how does it work?
No, so yeah, I think that's another thing maybe just to mention is I think podcasts are relatively new to most South Africans. So that's been a journey as well, is getting people used to the different platforms and how to access them. So just in case there are viewers that don't know, a podcast, I like to explain it as when you used to all gather around the radio and listen to radio stories at night. It's like that, but now it's on the internet, and you can access it whenever you want to. So if I go into my internet now, what would I specifically be putting in to search? Do I search True Crime South Africa? Yeah, you could do that. If you did that, it would take you to my website, truecrimesouthafrica.com. And on the homepage of my website, I've got links So with podcasts, you use, it's best to use a podcast app. There are many. So there's Spotify for the Android phones, there's Apple Podcasts for the iPhones, and there's many, many others. Because what that podcast app does is it gives you access not just to my podcast, but to all the other podcasts as well. So it's like having a library of podcasts on your phone. So if the viewers would like to access, probably the easiest way would be to go to my website, truecrimesouthafrica.com. And then on the front page there, you've got links to all of the different apps that you can use. Download the app on your phone and you've got instant access.
Well, I'm actually on your website, yeah, and I see that you've got 62 episodes.
Yes, that's
62
right.
already. The Waterkloof, part 4. And then you've got the murder of Karabu Makuna. You've got the interview with Tanya Faber. So you really have covered a tremendous number of, and these are all South African crimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Gee whiz. Well, I think that's incredible, and as you say, you know what, there's a lot that one doesn't hear of, and I think now during Women's Month especially, it's as though that there was, let's say during lockdown, there was a rise in almost like the visibility of these cases against women more than anything. You spoke about GBV, and it's like GBV has become a buzzword. You know, the acronym has become a buzzword. And I actually received a very lengthy document from one of my new members, Kim Lebochki. And Kim is actually an activist. It's her business as such, and it's really to try and eradicate sexual harassment in the workplace, because there's so much of it in the workplace. Yeah. And she shared this document with me that's just been released by the government, and the action that's going to be taken. And I think it's about a 15-page document. So there's certainly a lot of attention that's being focused on gender-based violence. And I think, you know, what you're doing is now also bringing another level of consciousness of these crimes that are constantly being committed. I mean, Nicole, we know that where you are living in the Cape districts and that there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of gang violence and that going on. So that it's rather unnerving to think that there is so much of this. But, you know, we need to be conscious, but we also mustn't allow this to cloud our judgment in terms of how we see people in general. Yeah. So who have been your role models during your lifetime that you've looked up to and aspired to, and anybody in particular, or few, I would imagine?
Yeah, so I would say, I don't know if I would so much call them role models, but certainly people who have had a major influence in my life. And those are people that have seen something in me that I didn't see in myself at the time. And, you know, that's something I'd like to tell people out there. You know, if you're, whatever the situation may be, if you're working with someone, or, you know, and you see something in them that you don't think they see in themselves, please tell them. Please, you know, if you are able to give someone a hand up, even if they don't think they deserve it, give it to them. Because I've been really, really blessed in my life with people who I've worked with specifically, and seeing in me possibilities that you know, that I hadn't allowed myself to see at the time. And if I think back, those people who understood what I was capable of when I didn't have really shaped my path to where I am now. The confidence that I had to start, you know, the ventures that I've done now comes from people in my past, you know, working in, you know, and corporate can often be a negative, you know, people have a negative connotation about it, but a lot of these people worked in a corporate environment, and they gave me the confidence in myself to be able, and men and women, to be able to start my own thing and, achieve what I want to, so many people, one small example I can give you, probably the most recent example, was when I moved from Johannesburg to Cape Town. I was unemployed for 3 months. I moved with, my husband had been given a promotion, so that's why we moved, and I had to leave my job there. And when I moved here, at the time there, I was a personal assistant in Johannesburg. And I moved here and I'd made contact and I'd networked, and the group that I was working in within at the time had said, we really want to keep you within the group. We'll try and see what we can find for you in Cape Town. And I thought, oh, well, okay, that's great. But, I really need to get a job, whether it's with you guys or not, So a gentleman from the group who didn't know me, but had spoken to someone who had worked with me in Johannesburg, contacted me and said to me, I've got a position for you. Can you come for an interview? And I went into his office and I had the interview, and the position was for a sales manager. Now, I said to him, you do realize that I was a personal assistant. I've worked in sales before, but in internal sales, I've never been a sales manager. And he looked at me and he said, you are my new sales manager. I know you can do it. I've spoken to people that you've worked with in Joburg that I trust and who have told me who you are as a person. What job you've done before is negligible to me.
Wow.
And yeah, and I was hired as a sales manager, and I was extremely successful at it.
There we go.
Yeah, so and there've been a lot of situations like that with people who have, just made that move for me and said to me, yes, you can do this. And, it's just have someone else having confidence in you, sort of pushes you along the way, So those have certainly been people that have helped to shape my life. Absolutely.
Now, there's a lot to be said for people like that, because, often is the case where somebody doesn't want you to actually thrive and grow and develop. But those that do are the true leaders. Those are true leaders, because, I think anybody that's in a leadership role should want to see somebody else flourish and grow and thrive. So that's wonderful. And I bet you've still got a wonderful relationship with them.
Yes, absolutely. They all are well aware that they are people that I will respect throughout my lifetime. I'm still connected with them on social media. Unfortunately, the gentleman that I just mentioned now, he actually passed away 2 months after he hired me. He had cancer at the time, but that really inspired me to work even harder to make him proud. And I was still in contact with his wife, who I hadn't known, before this happened. And I always gave her updates, and she says that, she always said that in getting my updates, she really felt like she was, sort of seeing what Don had put in place, still coming to fruition after his passing. So it was awesome to be a part of that as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you also have children, and I hear your dog in the background.
Yes, sorry about that. She doesn't seem to understand the protocol of being on a live video, and I don't think it would be great for me to shout at her, but yeah, so those are my furry children. I don't have any human children.
Yes, I know you told me that before, so that's wonderful.
I've got 3 dogs and 1 cat.
Yeah, fantastic. So, having been given the opportunity to be involved in this book, and now having read the stories, what are the messages that you have received out of this book, and that you can encourage others to read the book? what are some of the messages that, you know, that resonate, or not that resonate, but what did you take out of the book that is meaningful and would be meaningful for others as well? The Forgotten Woman, the South African storybook.
Sure. So I think the overriding theme that I got out of it was, and it's going to sound strange, but there are no excuses. You know, when we sit and we say, I can't do this because, and I can't do that because, you know, there is no excuse, because those women in that book, the odds that they overcame are just phenomenal. They are, you know, and anything, most of the, you know, difficulties are relative, you know, so what's difficult, a challenge to one person is maybe not so challenging to another. But, you know, we really need to, you know, from that book, if those ladies can achieve what they've achieved, and I mean, some of these women have achieved major success, you know, anyone can. Yeah. You know, so that was really the overriding theme for me. And there are some stories that speak about physical violence that the women endured, and not just on one occasion in their lives. And I am so, so glad that those ladies have the courage to speak up, because, you know, especially with rape and sexual assault, it's often survivors are silenced by themselves, by this stigma that is put on survivors. And I think we are working our way out of that, but it's so important for women of their caliber to come forward and say, I too have experienced that, and I too have overcome, so that others feel willing to share their story and feel that if she can share it, then so can I. You know, so those are two really important things that I got out of the stories, Charlotte.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing that from a lot of people is that, you know, while they're reading the stories, they actually are almost choking, and they're choking back the tears, because these stories are real, they're true, it's not fiction, it's happened. And as you say, they've survived, you know, several. And I mean, we know with one, Lynn Hill, she, you know, has gone through 2 extreme cases of abuse, sexual abuse. So yes, this is real, this is relevant. And so what is next in line from you? So what is in the pipeline that we can see happening within the world of Nicole Engelbrecht?
So I've got 2 new podcast series in the line that I'm working on. One is I'm not going to say which case it is, because I'm still working on it, but it is a very famous South African unsolved case. And I will be approaching that case from the victim's perspective, because so often when these cases become so legendary, we focus on all the mystery and the possible perpetrators, and we forget about who the victim actually was as a person. So that'll be a series that I'll be doing. So it'll be sort of like 12 episodes, a long form series. And then I've also got, I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few very interesting people through the podcast. So I've met a gentleman called Dr. Bryn Hodgkiss, who I interviewed on my podcast. And when he still lived in South Africa, he did a PhD where he interviewed 13 serial killers.
Wow.
Yes. So we're working together on putting a series together that will cover all of those interviews that he did and the research that he did into those people. So those are 2 of my goals, my sort of medium-term goals. And then I do hope to put my own book out there at some stage. I think that's something that I'd really like to do as well.
I would imagine that this is you know, it'll be unacceptable if you don't, of course, Nicole, seeing that you're writing everybody else's. So, Nicole,
Yes.
could any of these podcasts and the research that you did, could that ever become a series, a television series? Is it something that you've ever considered?
Yeah, so it looks, certainly there is a lot of true crime on television at the moment. There are, I mean, America has given us entire channels dedicated to true crime, and I've seen that South Africa has been picking up on those as well. So we are doing our own true crime on television, documentaries and that sort of thing, which are very popular. I have been approached by a few different people to discuss long-term projects, more from a research perspective. So I'm very much a behind-the-scenes person.
Yes, yes.
I wouldn't mind doing the narration, but I don't know that I'd be doing an on-camera sort of thing. But there are certainly some television possibilities in the pipeline, yes.
Excellent, excellent. So True Crime South Africa, is that your company name? Is it your brand?
Yeah.
Has it been trademarked? And is because I'm saying, you're talking about there's a lot of true crime on television, but the name True Crime South Africa, how did that come about?
So that is, yes, it's a brand. It was originally the name of the podcast, just to be very specific about what the podcast was about. It's not trademarked at this point, but it is now becoming a brand. I do have merchandise, and the book will be sort of True Crime South Africa related. So it certainly is becoming a brand name, and I will be looking at formalizing that at some stage as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, there's certainly a lot to look forward to from your side, Nicole, and thank you so much again for the contribution that you made in helping us to edit. It was quick time. It was obviously done in such quick time, and tomorrow we're also interviewing young Kayla Koza, who was the other editor. So just so that, for the sake of those that are perhaps listening and watching, is that at the time, and Nicole, you were so gracious to accept it, I had asked, would you mind very much if we had a second editor, simply because I realized that there was such a short time frame, and I wanted to not have all the pressure on one person, and you were so gracious to say absolutely. And I think the threesome that we eventually became was actually very exciting, and I could see how you were feeding off Yamkela and she was feeding off you. And I think that's the collaborative spirit. Don't you agree, Nicole?
Absolutely, absolutely. It worked perfectly. I'm very glad you made the suggestion. Being able to split the chapters in the short time that we had was fantastic as well. That helped a lot. And, Yamkela is she's also an inspiration, for the amazing work that she's done for such a young lady. I was really glad to be on the same team as her, and I really think it worked very, very well. Absolutely.
And you know already that we've spoken about a second series of this book, or the book to become a series. So the Forgotten Woman, the South African Stories, this is basically series 1, and then we'll have series 2, and let's see where this takes us. So, and I guess the team is there. This team is set and raring to go, not so. And I'm sure you must know. Yeah, and I'm sure you must know many women who have a story to tell as well, Nicole, and maybe to encourage these ladies. I was very fortunate to meet a very wonderful woman who's in Cape Town. Her name is Miranda Abrams. And you must please get in contact with her, because she's launching her first series of wines coming out of the Western Cape, and it's called, listen to this, Birthmark of Africa.
Oh, wow.
Birthmark of Africa wines.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yes, and Miranda tells me the story behind that, which is very interesting, which would make for a wonderful episode or chapter in our next book. So there's some incredible women out there. So
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what would your with it being Women's Month, and what would your pearls of wisdom be that you would like to leave with those who are listening, and with it being Women's Month, and we're celebrating women, and we want women to be celebrated, and we want women to celebrate one another.
Absolutely. I think for me, in wanting to sort of promote women and have them believe that they can achieve, you can achieve anything. It's and that isn't just for women, it's for men as well. But that what you said now, instead of breaking each other down, build each other up, that is super important, because it is so much easier to break someone else down rather than build them up, but in building someone up, you don't realize the long-term impact that you have on their lives, so that's one thing. And the other thing is, don't ever think that anything is out of your reach. If someone had told me 2 years ago that in 2 years' time I would be writing for a living, have a podcast, I would be a podcaster and a true crime podcast, I would have laughed in their faces. So that is how quickly life takes you down the path that you're supposed to be on. And just be open to it. You can earn money again. If there's money to be spent, you can earn money again. You cannot earn back time. And one thing for me, in doing this, I used some of I used some of my pension money to fund this exercise, and it's probably the wrong thing to do, but I sat there and I thought, well, great, I'm going to have pension money, but am I going to be happy as an 80-year-old or a 90-year-old? If I don't do this, if I don't try this. So, that's to have that future vision and just try it. What's the worst that can happen? A lot of the things that I've managed to achieve and the people I've managed to network with is simply, I call it cheeky, but I'm not afraid to ask, because the worst answer I can get is no. And then it's no skin off my back, and I've had people help me through this journey, this podcasting and writing journey, simply because I asked them to. And if you don't ask, you will not know. There's no shame in asking. So ask people for their help. Don't be afraid to do that, because one day you'll be able to pay it back to them. And, the spirit of giving in amongst women really needs to be at a higher level. And I think you've got that down to a fantastic, sort of thing happening at Women of Stature, because you're a group of women who are supporting each other, helping each other to grow. And that, for me, that's really how we all need to be as a society of women, is to build each other up. Yeah.
No, you're so right there, and that is exactly the spirit of Women's Month should be, to show that you actually are consciously mindful of building up rather than breaking down. But it's just unfortunate that it doesn't always necessarily work in the bigger scheme of things. But I think, as you say, as an organization, that is our mantra, is about supporting one another and really giving the woman the space to grow and develop, and being mindful of how we behave towards one another, and how and what it is that we say to one another, that it doesn't break the person down, but rather to build the person up. Yeah. Well, we are at the end of our interview, and I just want to say, Nicole, thank you very much. First of all, congratulations on what you've achieved in such a short space of time, being on your own. And as you said, you had to take that risk. You were young enough to take that risk. Let me tell you, I was your age when I took my first risk of starting a business, and you're still of that age that you can still take these risks. And it was a calculated risk because it was something that you knew that you were good at, and you knew that there was a space and a place for it. So well done on that. Thank you for your words of encouragement to other women. I know that everybody that was listening into you were very, very encouraged by it. But I think what it is that you are doing, and that you are actually bringing to a conscious level the stories, the crime stories, and the crimes that have been committed in our country that are literally being brushed under the carpet as being insignificant. But no life is insignificant, no matter who you are, no matter what the race, no matter what the culture, the belief. It's a human life, and every human life should be valued in the spirit of what we as a nation should be striving towards, and that is protecting life and not let it be so fickle. So thank you so much for your time, Nicole. I look forward to doing more wonderful projects with you and supporting you in your projects as well. We will need to talk offline about that as well. And thanks to everyone that listened into this interview and getting to know Nicole Engelbrecht, who made a major contribution towards this book. Fabulous interview from you, Nicole. I'm excited because not only are you an inspiration, says our viewer, Roslyn, but I now know how to listen to podcasts, something I've thought about but never known how to do. I look forward to listening to all your podcasts. You are amazing. Oh, thank you for that, Roslyn.
Thank you so much, Roslyn.
Bless you all. Have a wonderful rest of the Women's Month, and look out for all our other interviews, ladies. As I say, tomorrow we've got Jan Keller and a couple of more right up until the 31st of this month, where we're celebrating women. Bless you all and have a wonderful day. Bye.